What's up, everybody? This is MMA Rant. I'm coming to y'all today with another video. But before I get started, I wanted to give some shout outs to a couple of the subscribers here. Number one, John Paltrow. Me and him have been kicking it on here lately, you know, going back and forth with a little bit of ranting, and I want to give him a shout out. Also, I'm saying this name correctly, Arjun Guranj. I want to give him a shout out as well. Me and him has been kicking it on Messenger, you know, going back and forth about MMA, what we like, what we don't like, you know, and I want to give him a shout out as well. Also, I want to appreciate and thank all the subscribers. The numbers are going up. I appreciate it. And also, I want to give a shout out to everybody that's been leaving me thumbs up, everybody that's been leaving me thumbs down, all the bullshit ass, trolling ass, retarded ass people that's been leaving some bullshit ass comments on there. Guess what I do to y'all bitch asses? I delete y'all. So guess what? Keep on keeping on. And guess what? If you hit on my video, it's a hit for my video. So keep bringing it. And if you're listening right now, subscribe. Now on with the video, okay? This video tonight is to talk about UFC 200. Now my thing is this. Is UFC 200 really a big deal? Or is it not a really big deal? And that's what I'm asking y'all right now. Everybody that's listening, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what y'all think. Is UFC 200 really that big of a deal? Okay? Now, I can say this. Probably last year, when I was watching me a pay-per-view, sitting on the couch, eating some, you know, sliced cucumbers, eating some damn popcorn, whatever the hell I was eating last year when I was watching one of those UFC pay-per-views, one of the little commercials came on, and it said, "Get ready for UFC 200, coming to you soon." And I'm like, whoa, UFC 200? That must go mean some shit there, because they're advertising this shit like a year later. But when I was sitting on my couch watching that pay-per-view that night, I could care two flying shits about a UFC 200. I wasn't even thinking about UFC 200. And I guarantee you, nobody else was thinking about UFC 200 until the UFC posted their commercials talking about UFC 200. So the UFC started making this a big deal. I don't think nobody else was making this a big deal. Nobody else was talking about this before they did. Okay, so I'm gonna put this one on their asses. Okay, so I asked myself, is UFC 200 a big deal to me? Honestly, the number itself, no. I don't give two shits about if it's UFC 198, 199, 200, 201, 220. It don't matter to me. What matters to me is about if it's a pay-per-view that I want to watch, okay? So now, I'm going to give you all a little bit of history here, okay? UFC 100, okay, was made out to be a big deal. Not because they were advertising it a year ahead of time. It was made a big deal after the fight, after the pay-per-view happened, and how well it was put together and how many big-time fighters was on that card. You know, you had Brock Lesnar going against Frank Mir. You had GSP fighting Thiago Alves, I think that's his name. You had Dan Henderson fighting Michael Bisping. You had John Fitch fighting Paulo Thiago. You had Yoshihiro Okayani. I'm trying to make sure I get the damn names right, okay? And Alan Belcher's who he fought, okay? That was the main card. That main card was pretty damn stacked right there. That was a pretty good fight card right there, okay? And that pay-per-view was held at the Mandalay Bay Arena, okay? And that arena holds 12,000 people, okay? But they had 10,870 people in attendance that night at that arena, okay? And the gate is the highest gate in UFC history. So they only had close to 11,000 people there with a gate of 5,128,000, which is the highest gate in UFC history, okay? Now, UFC 200 is going to open up at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on July the 9th. That's when UFC 200 is going to happen, okay? And that arena holds 20,000 people. Do I think that this pay-per-view will, you know, sell out in the arena? 20,000 people will come to this event? I don't think so. I don't think 20,000 people are going to be there. I think this will break the Gates record, though, this pay-per-view. Now let's compare the card to the card. Let's compare 200 to 100. I just named off all the names in 100 that was in the main card. Okay, it was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The top 6 fights were the fights that are in the main event. Okay, so looking at the grid I got right here that y'all are looking at right now with y'all beady eyes. Okay, you got Nate Diaz taking on Conor McGregor. Of course, you know right now you gotta have the UFC's biggest star in their so-called biggest pay-per-view event. Okay, so you got Conor McGregor fighting Nate Diaz again. Nate Diaz brings in big numbers himself, along with Conor McGregor bringing in some big numbers. And guess what? You got two guys that don't give a shit about weight classes. You got two guys that don't give a shit about who they stand across the cage from. But there's one thing that these two guys give a shit about, and it's about the money. So these two guys want big time money fights, and on UFC 200, with these two fighting at the main event, these two guys will be making some big money. So, okay, you got Nate Diaz main event going against versus Conor McGregor. So you got that main event going against Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir. Now, at that time, Brock Lesnar was the biggest thing in the UFC, and as far as to a lot of people, he is still the biggest thing that ever happened to the UFC. You know, so Brock Lesnar brought over a lot of fans from WWE, and that's what helped with that gate for that event. Conor McGregor doesn't have the WWE universe; he has the Ireland universe, and that's who's going to fly over here to see Conor McGregor fight at UFC 200. So those two main event cards, honestly, I can't say one beat the other because these both have big drawing names in the main event. Not necessarily the best fighter, but the best crowd pleaser, the best crowd go-getter, the best marketing fighters are in both of these main events and both pay-per-views. So they're both equal. To me, they're both equal. Okay? Y'all in the comments, let me know what y'all think about each one of these main events. Which main event was the better main event? Is it Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor? Or is it Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir? You know? Nate Diaz is a veteran. He's a scrappy-ass fighter. He knows what he's doing. He's technical with everything he does. So was Frank Mir. And then we had Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, fighting Frank Mir. Brock Lesnar is a big-time name, big draw, not that great of a fighter, but very skilled and very dangerous. That's just like Conor McGregor. So I see the same similarities in both of these fights. But hey, can you really draw a comparison to this right now? Or should we wait till after the fight to see which one of these fights were truly the better fight? But I'm asking for us right now, as far as what we see, which one of these main events are the best main event that y'all believe will be in the history of UFC? Will it be this one, Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor, or will it be Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir? Okay, and then let's go to the co-main events. Okay. Now, I'm going to definitely have an answer for the co-main event, okay? You got damn Miesha Tate taking on Amanda Nunes. Now, I will give the UFC some props and mad respect and mad credit for doing this. They're putting a women's title fight as the co-main event at UFC 200. It's supposed to be it's supposed to be the biggest main event in UFC history. And I'm glad they're showing some diversity in, women's empowerment and doing great things for the women woman movement, and I commend them for doing this, definitely. But you got Miesha Tate taking on Amanda Nunes at UFC 200, and now let's look at the UFC 100 co-main event. You have George St. Pierre taking on Thiago Alves. Right there, I don't really give a shit about Thiago Alves, just like I don't give a shit about Amanda Nunes, okay? They both are great fighters, they both are dangerous. And now let's look at the stars, or I should say the champions, at the other two sides. You got Miesha Tate, and then you got George St. Pierre. Which one is the better UFC fighter? Which one is the bigger name? Which one is the bigger star? If your ass been living underneath of a rock, or if you don't agree with me on this one, then you need to jump off a damn cliff and disown yourself. George St. Pierre is the bigger, better name than Miesha Tate will ever be. So I'm going to give that co-main event at UFC 100 hands down 100% way better than the co-main event at UFC 200. Personally, when I heard that this was the co-main event, I'm like, what the What the fuck is the UFC doing, man? Putting that damn fight as the co-main event. I think it's bullshit. And you know what? No disrespect against the woman movement, because I think women are great. I think women are beautiful. And guess what? I live with a beautiful, fine, young woman right now. So trust me, I'm all about it. But that being a co-main event, no sir. That fight should have been the third fight on the main card, you know? Speaking of the third fight on the main card, let's get to the third fight on the main card, okay? For UFC 200, you got Jose Aldo Jr. I'm not even gonna start on him tonight because that ain't what this is about, okay? And then you got Frankie Edgar facing each other for the Interim Featherweight Championship belt. That is gonna be a great fight. But let me get to the third fight on the UFC 100 pay-per-view. You had Dan Henderson fighting Michael Bisping, okay? Now, y'all let me know in the comments as well. Which one of those fights was the better fight? Is it the fight at UFC 200? Or is it the fight at UFC 100? Is it Jose Aldo versus Frankie Edgar? Or is it Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping? Which one of those fights were the better fight? If you ask me personally right now, I'm going to tell you it's going to be Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar. You have two guys that were champions at different weight classes and in the same weight class, okay? You have a champion, Jose Aldo, or a former champ, that's been dominant and has been a champ for 10 years. You can't say that about any of those other fighters on UFC 100. And I'm talking as far as Dan Henderson and Michael Bisping. Those two ain't never won no UFC belts. I give Dan Henderson his mad props, mad respect. He has been a champion before, you know, in the earlier days. And guess what? Mad props and respect go out to those guys. But we're talking about these fights right here. I'm going to give the edge to Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar's fight. It's for a belt. These two are bigger, better fighters. And definitely right now. But y'all let me know in the comments which fight y'all think is the better fight. And guess what? You got Cain Velasquez and Travis Brown for the fourth fight. And then the fourth fight on UFC 100, John Fitch and Paulo Thiago. Enough said about those two right there. Cain Velasquez has been dominant. He's been a big-time name, big-time draw. I'm glad they put some Mexican pride on this UFC 200 card as well. They got a lot of diversity on this card. I can't give that to them. So, you know, I'm big ups for that. And I think that fourth fight is way better than the fourth fight for UFC 100. So me looking at this right here, I think UFC 200 is a stacked card, believe it or not. I think it's shaping up to be something great. I'm definitely going to order this pay-per-view. I'm definitely going to try to stream this on here. And I'm going to try to stream some video of this on my YouTube channel. I am going to post some streaming on my YouTube. And I'm going to try to post some streaming on my Facebook as well. I will leave a link to my Facebook account as well. Because like I said, I am going to try to stream and post as much as this as I can that night. So, like I said before, my big ups go to UFC 200 over UFC 100. I think UFC 200 will break the gate record. Conor McGregor is a big time name, and Nate Diaz. I think the main event itself will sell the pay-per-view. And I think all the other fights underneath are great fights as well. And that's what I think about it. But guess what? Leave me a comment. Let me know what y'all think. Hit the thumbs up. If you're listening right now, subscribe to my channel if you like what you hear. And until next time, y'all, peace, love, and you.
Man, I knew this thing would happen. I ain't stressing, I ain't worried about it. I've been on a mission, I've been repping, now you heard about it. People always talking, they be talking, never know their place. I was on the job and I was mobbing, had to show my face. Always been a mama's boy, now I count them commas, boy. Got it when she needed, baby, call that perfect timing, boy. Burning like a candle, getting higher than Sopranos. We been down since the beginning with that drum and that piano down. Shout out to my baby boys, daddy making noise, daddy working, daddy love you. I be back to play with toys, yeah. Don't get it mistaken, I've been patient, I've been waiting, I've been focused, I'm determined, and this shit is for the time. Now that we right here.